Director Aguilar, Director Raymond, Director Espinoza, Director Hogue, Director Lohr, Director Murphy,
Here.
Director Pereira, Director Silvera, Director Vialta, Director McDaniel, Director Oliveira. We have a quorum.
The second. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Item 5, public comment. If you want to comment on something not on the agenda, now would be the time. If you want to comment on something on the agenda, please wait for that item to come up when it comes up on the agenda. Do we have anybody that would like to give us some public comment? Okay, seeing none. Item 6, also an action item. We have the minutes of the MCAG Governing Board meeting for April 18th, the Transit Joint Powers Authority for Merced County, and the Regional Waste Management Authority Board meeting of April 18th.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Item 7, Citizens Advisory Committee report. Report will be given by Mr. Jack Jackson.
Good afternoon. The Citizens Advisory Committee met on Friday, May the 3rd, and there were 3 action items. The first one was to approve the unmet transit needs finding of fact 2019 through 20. One is to adopt resolution number 2019/05-16-01 with a finding of fact that there are unmet transit needs, including needs that are reasonable to meet, and to approve the unmet transit needs for fiscal year 2019 to 2020 analysis and recommendation report. The motion was unanimously carried. The second item was to the YART's MCAG annual agreement for services fiscal year 2019 through 2020, to authorize the execution of the agreement for services between the Yosemite Area Regional Transportation System and Merced County Association of Governments for a period of 1 year from July 1st, 2019 through June 30th, 2020. Motion was unanimously carried. The third item, to authorize contract for transit security services. To recommend the Governing Board to authorize the Executive Director to enter into a 3-year contract for public transit security services in the amount not to exceed $334,800. Motion was unanimously carried. Unless you have any other questions or comments, that's the end of my report.
Any questions for Mr. Jackson? Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 8, we'll have a presentation by Peninsula Clean Energy.
Is this? Okay. Was it on your screens?
We've got what you've got up here. There we go.
There we go. Okay. Thank you for adding us to your agenda today. We've talked to some of you on the board, some of you we have not yet had the pleasure to meet with individually. I'm Jan Pepper, I'm the CEO of Peninsula Clean Energy, and we have a number of people from our organization here today. Rick DeGolia and Rick Bonilla, who are directors on our board, John Keener, who is an emeritus director on our board, Charles C. Chang, who is our public affairs associate, and Joe Weidman, our director of legislative and regulatory affairs, and Mike Dozier, who is our consultant. So we wanted to come today to talk to you about what community choice energy is, what we're doing in San Mateo County, and hopefully get you excited about exploring that same concept here in Merced County. So, there we go. So we are the official electricity provider for San Mateo County. We're offering cleaner and greener energy at lower rates for the county. And it would, how community choice energy works is that basically we replace PG&E for sourcing the power that's provided to residents and businesses. So that's what's called the generation. PG&E still delivers the power over their lines. They still send the bills. There's a line on the bill that has our charges, and then the customers benefit from cleaner energy at lower rates. A lot of things stay the same. The PG&E discounts and programs are still there, whether someone is a community choice energy customer or not. So the CARE program, FERA, medical baseline, all of that still exists. The energy efficiency programs are still available to people because PG&E is still maintaining the poles and wires. The reliability continues to be the same. And if the power goes off, you still call PG&E to ask them what happened. Community choice energy was allowed by some legislation that was passed in 2002, AB 117, which allows government jurisdictions, cities and counties to aggregate their electric load and decide to source the generation for their customers to provide whatever the community is interested in providing. And this map shows how this movement basically has grown over the last few years. The green, dark green areas are areas where a county has adopted a community choice energy program and it's currently operating. The yellow areas are where people are exploring it, and the green and yellow areas are where they're in varying stages of starting. So as you can see on there, Merced County is still gray, and that's why we're here to talk to you. And I think I'll come back to this one a little bit later. Just to give you some statistics, in our county, in San Mateo County, which you can kind of see on that map there, we're right south of San Francisco, and we span from the Pacific Ocean to the San Francisco Bay. We have about 300,000 accounts. 97.6% of our residents and businesses are participating, and we just recently received an investment grade credit rating from Moody's, so we're very excited about that because it really helps to establish that we're a viable company with a good business plan. And so the way the legislation works is if a community decides to offer a community choice energy program to their constituents, then everyone is automatically enrolled in the program. If the residents or businesses do not want to be a part of it, they can opt out and go back to PG&E. And in our case, 97.6% of our customers have stayed with us, only 2.64% have gone back to PG&E. So why would people have stayed with us? Well, our Eco Plus is our default product, and we're offering that at 5% less than PG&E's rates. And it's a better product in terms of being greener. It's 50% renewable energy and 90% greenhouse gas free. Greenhouse gas free basically means it's from large hydroelectric projects. And we also offer a 100% renewable energy product if people are interested in being 100% renewable, and about 5% of our customers have opted up to that. And because we are offering this product at 5% below PG&E's competing product, we have saved our customers more than $18 million in San Mateo County in 2018, which is a lot of money. So instead of that money going to PG&E for them to distribute to their shareholders, it's staying in the community for people to spend on whatever they might want to. And we're also saving 515 million pounds of carbon emissions that are avoided by having cleaner and greener electricity. That's equivalent to taking 50,000 cars off the road. And why are we here? We're here in Merced County because one of the projects that we have contracted for is a 200 megawatt solar project being built near Los Banos called the Wright Solar Park. And that project has how many thousands of solar panels? 680,000 solar panels for this 200 megawatt solar project. We broke ground on this last year. It should start delivering power at the end of this year. And there's over 400 regional union jobs have been created over the next couple of years to build this project. And as the crow flies, it's less than 100 miles from where we are in San Mateo County, but it is right here in your community. And we know that there's some interest in possibly being able to bring that power to your communities here. We're also, because even though we offer our product at less than PG&E, we've been able to build up a lot of economic reserves, and we actually have over $100 million of reserves that we've built up because of our programs, because being a not-for-profit joint powers agency. And so we're using that money to reinvest back into our community. And what we're doing, which is important for San Mateo County, is investing in transportation, because that's an area where there's a lot of greenhouse gas emissions are from. So we're trying to get people into electric vehicles using the clean electricity that we're providing, putting in the charging infrastructure for people to charge those cars, and doing some other community pilots to look at other ways to electrify what we're doing. So for Merced, there's a lot of different things that you could do. You know, you would need to figure out what's important for your communities and your county as far as what kind of investments you'd want to do. Maybe you want to have all of it go into reduced rates and have a greater than 5% discount for your customers, or whatever you would want to do. But that's the option, and that's the beauty of having a community choice energy program, is that it's oriented towards the community. It's what does the community choose to do. So the process to go through forming a community choice energy program is to actually get your electric load information from PG&E and evaluate that information and see what is our electric load, do a feasibility study, how much would it cost to put forth a community choice energy program, how much might our customers save, and then to make a decision once you have that information of whether you'd want to form a joint powers agency of your own or join an existing CCA like ours. And then we would recommend trying, if you decide you want to go forth after the study is done, to submit an implementation plan to the California Public Utilities Commission. Because if you get it in by December of this year, you could start your program in January of 2021. There's a year delay before the Public Utilities Commission would allow you to start. If you miss December of this year and get it in 2020, then it would take till 2022 before you could start. So one of the things that we have included in the packet we gave you are the forms to fill out to ask PG&E to provide the aggregated electric load information, and that would be the next step to get the information to decide whether or not it makes sense for you to go forward. So that's kind of it in a nutshell. I know I've gone through this really quickly, and I'm happy to answer any questions. I know some of you know more than others, and happy to answer questions, or any of the other folks here from PCE as well.
So I'll go first. So I met with Jan and their team, and one thing that you said but may not be clear is that this Joint Powers Authority is made up of the cities and county in San Mateo. So similar to us as an MCAG, or any Joint Powers Authority that we belong to. And so it's really the leaders in the community put this together for their county.
Right. Thank you. And because it is a JPA, actually the general funds of every city and the county are protected. So the JPA cannot claw into those general funds.
Any other questions?
I got just Jan, you had said earlier, I forgot to ask you this earlier. So 5% below PG&E's rate. And then does that 5%, you know, PG&E has a tiered rate system to where, you know, you go over the baseline and you get charged another dollar amount for it. So that it's always 5% below what their set rate is, even in those above baseline numbers.
Yes, so they have about 150 rates when you look at their whole rate schedule. So we take every rate, we take 5% off of that. And then there's an exit fee that customers pay, so we subtract that off as well, so that the net cost to the customer is 5% below what they were paying PG&E. So our rate is actually probably 30 to 35% below PG&E, but when you add in all their fees, it comes out to 5% less.
Perfect, thank you.
Any other questions? Okay.
Yeah, why don't you come on up here? So Rick is the vice chair of our board. And our board consists of a council member from all 20 cities plus the county. So we have a 22-member board for our JPA, and Rick is our vice chair.
Yeah, when we looked at doing this, there were a couple members of the Board of Supervisors and a couple city council members from different city councils that were aware that this had been done in Marin County. And actually the first attempt to form a CCA was in the Central Valley in southern San Joaquin County that was ultimately killed by PG&E marketing and then the 2008 recession. But following that, Marin County established it. And when we looked at ours, this was the first issue in the history of our county where every council member on every city council in the county voted for it. In fact, it's the only issue that's gotten that level of vote that's come before all of our city councils. So it was a really big change. And, you know, we made a commitment that when we went out to source power from communities other than San Mateo County, in each community where we sought to source power, we would talk to the local electeds in that community and share with them the experience we've had, because we think it's been such a positive program for San Mateo County, both in terms of the programs that we're establishing and the discounts that we've delivered to our customers. And just to quantify it, we're saving about $5 million a month that we're literally putting in the bank, in addition to the $18 million we've saved for our customers. And since we had this commitment to go out and talk to the electeds in each county where we establish as a major power source, and Wright Solar is the biggest solar farm that any CCA has done in California, we agreed that if that community wanted to explore establishing a CCA for themselves, that we would put up $50,000 of the costs toward that feasibility study. And the feasibility, and we would expect them to put up at least $10,000. So there'd be some shared cost. But we're prepared that if you guys decide to do this, or any of your communities decide to do it, that we'd put up $50,000 toward the feasibility study to help you do it. And we really see that as in our interests, because the benefits of this local control program are so great. We want to make sure it gets spread to other communities than to those communities that it currently exists in. And you can see from that map in the packet that you have that it's really started on the coast, but it's begun to spread. And there are several different counties in the Central Valley that are looking at it, and we hope that you will too.
Okay, thank you. Is there any public comment? Can you go to the microphone, please?
Honorable board members, my name is Paul Garcia. I'm a resident from Delhi, and I just have some questions and some maybe to get some clarification. When they did the survey, did they ask the communities, or was it community input? And when they did the surveys, or was this survey done by the elected officials? And that's the question number one. The other one is we've been having some people said, are you satisfied with the services you're getting either with TID or PG&E? And they're signing up people. So I don't know if this is the same program or not. In other words, I'd really like to know about that. Thank you.
I'm not really sure about the first question, but on the second piece about TID, let me say something, because we only would be approaching customers that are customers of PG&E. We met this afternoon with MID, and we're not competing with MID. We're not interested in going into areas where MID is looking to expand or where they currently exist. We're only going to reach to PG&E customers that are, not in their area. And I think actually in Merced there's a tiny area where TID is. We wouldn't be interested in that either. That's already a local control. So.
Good evening. My name is Rick Bonilla. I'm a member of the board and also a city council member from San Mateo. The answer to the first question is that we did conduct about a year and a half worth of public meetings where upwards of 60 to 90 people from many different parts of the county would come, including people representing different organizations, different neighborhoods, all sorts of different interest groups. We had a very broad outreach, and it was a very successful process because in the end, of course, the council members saw so many people in support of it. That's partially why all the council members voted in support of this unanimously. There were like 107 votes between all 20 cities and the 5 members of the County Board of Supervisors. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
And then I think maybe part of the other question that Paul had was are people coming in now, because there's some other people that try to be resellers of electricity. These people have not gone to any doors in Merced County. And so those programs are totally different from what this could be.
Yeah, and we haven't spoken to anyone in Merced County. We've spoken to some of you on this board, but that would be, if you decide that you want to go forward and form a CCA here in Merced County, that would be part of the process, is doing outreach to your communities and informing them about it and making people aware of what is coming down the line.
Any other questions?
I just wanted to thank you for the presentation. I learned a lot. The next step, if we want to move forward, would be to take some action, agendize some action for discussion around a feasibility study. Is that that would be the next step if we wanted to do that, right? We're agendized just for a report tonight, this afternoon.
Very good. Well, thank you.
And we're happy to come back again, whatever you want. Time is kind of the essence if you want to do the feasibility study because of that year lag. We'd suggest that you look at these forms and fill them out. There's no risk. You just fill them out, you get the PG&E information. We'll help you get the analysis done so that you can see if it makes sense to do it. But it'll take a few months for PG&E to actually get the data together to have that analysis done. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Move on to item 9, Caltrans report. Mr. Tom Dumas.
Hi, everybody. How are you doing? Just a quick update. I'm working on schedules with Merced County Public Works and our director to talk about the issues out in Plainsburg, to see what history was, where everybody really wants to go, get our operations folks together. The new director is excited about trying to see what he can do, and the new voices, we'll see. Hopefully it'll come out pretty well. Regarding 59 Santa Fe Olive intersection, the work out there is now technically in construction. They'll have a groundbreaking in June probably, and that'll be work from Cooper all the way up to the Santa Fe Olive intersection. They'll be adding right turn lanes, pedestrian crossings, new signals in that intersection. When I get a better schedule on exactly when they'll start working and interfering with traffic, I'll get back to you so everybody knows when to try to avoid that area. Regarding Mariposa Creek Bridges down on South 59, that's part of a 12-mile, $26 million pavement preservation project that we've got out there. It's currently in design and construction. Design and environmental review. They're looking at construction period in spring of 2025. I know it's a long way away. They're looking at expediting that. They'll do it as quickly as possible, but that's our standard schedule. So if all things flow equally and fast, it'll be quicker, but they kind of hedge the bet and tell everybody if it goes as it could, we're looking at 2025, but hopefully it'll be quicker than that. Regarding the dip on North 99, we found out that's actually in Madera County, just north of Chowchilla, south of the way stations. We let their maintenance folks know, and they should be out there May 20th to repair it. So in June, you should have a smooth ride back and forth. And Dan McElhaney, when he was here, was our acting. I think the next day or so, he became our official director, and he'll be setting up an executive meeting with Stacy and her staff and going over all matters of concern and trying to see where we can go from there. Other than that, we got rain today. Unfortunately, it's bad for cherry farmers. But for me, I got my yard watered, so I'm good. So, any questions or problems?
Any questions? Wow, you better get out of there quick.
Love you. Thank you.
But we got a public comment. You didn't go fast enough.
Sure. It's okay.
My question is that why is it taking so long? Is there the studies that they have to do in order for those projects to get done?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know.
The process is long. Even environmental, they've got to go through cycles and cycles of things. So,
But as far as the funding, the money's there and others to get it done.
for the 12-mile project,
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Okay, we'll move on to item 10. These items are for information and discussion only. We have the MCAG newsletter for May, the calendar of meetings, conferences, and events, the TRB board minutes from May the 8th, and the Valley Cog sponsorship letter, SB 742 Intercity Passenger Rail Services, meaning the motor coach transportation of passengers. Do we have any comments on any of these items? Yes.
Thank you. I got a comment on the 10D, the Valley Cog sponsorship letter. I attended the Valley Rail Committee and Regional Rail Committee in Stockton along with Director McDaniel out there. So SB 742, the Amtrak's trying to put a line from a throughway bus route from Madera to the Bay Area or San Jose, and they need this to pass in order for the throughway bus system from Amtrak, which is a connection route that they use, a bus system. So if right now, as it is, people not using the Amtrak cannot get on the bus, on continuation or on the bus system. So that's why we're supporting, and they want to get this SB 742 to pass so that other people from the general public can get on the bus system. So that's my comment. Thank you.
Any other comments on these items? Okay, seeing none, we're going to move to the consent agenda. Item A, approve the YARTS MCAG annual agreement for services for 2019 and 2020, and Citizens Advisory Committee representative appointments. We'll take item A first. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Item B, appointing to the Citizens Advisory Committee. We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Item 12, Transportation Planning and Planning End and Measure V updates. Matt?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I'll start with Measure V. As you know, the regional projects committees are meeting and deliberating on creating the next implementation plan. The West Side RPC met on Tuesday and acted, so they provided project recommendations that'll be coming to the board. And that's dependent on the East Regional Project Committee. Their next meeting is next Thursday. And so we figure once that body has acted as well, then we would bring that to this board for, because again, the process is those committees recommend projects and the board approves them. And speaking of that meeting next Thursday, that's being held here in Merced at the Sandpipes room downstairs. So we had scheduled that at Livingston. Apologies for some scheduling snafu, but we're having it here at Merced. It's actually the first time the East RPC meeting has been held at City Merced facilities. It's been in Merced, but this will be the first meeting at the city's facilities. There are the Measure V roadshows. Those are continuing, so there'll be Gustine next week, then Atwater, then Livingston, and then Dos Palos, I think, is going to be the last one. And then for some transportation planning updates, just to let you know, in case you didn't already know, High Speed Rail did release their 2019 project update report, which does solidify and confirm the Merced to Bakersfield thing that you've probably heard about in the news, you know, that the governor talked about previously. So that's pretty exciting to have seen that. And then on Monday at MCAG, we hosted a workshop where your staff, your planning staff came and Housing and Community and Development came to talk to everybody about the SB2 planning grants, and that's where there's some funds available to do planning related to the state's trying to emphasize getting more housing into production and all those sorts of things. So the city and the county have $300,000 and the smaller cities have, I think, about $160,000. And HCD staff demonstrated they're more than willing to work with folks on whatever everybody needs. So there were a lot of questions, a lot of good discussion. It was a great meeting. And your planning directors talked about continuing a discussion after that. So look for that coming in the near future. I think they want to get together and continue to talk about things, housing and possibly some other things. So I think that was a really good meeting. And then just a heads up on some of the items that will be coming, some of the routine items such as the RSTP, we're planning on bringing that to you next month. The LTF apportionment next month. There'll be another CMAQ item. We'll have to talk about CMAQ again next month. And then there's a couple other things we'll probably talk about in July, including Highway Infrastructure Program, which was a board item back in January. So we'll bring that back to you with where that's at, and also start talking about the STIP. The STIP process is going to be kicking off basically with the state releasing their fund estimate. So that's just kind of a preview of some of the things that will be coming up. And if you have any questions on planning or Measure V, I'd be happy to answer those.
Any questions? Wow. You got to ask your question.
All right.
I just have a question in regards to the dates that upcoming, okay? Are those also, can you get on the internet to have access to that?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, no, that's a great question.
Okay,
Go ahead.
thank you.
Let people know. Yeah, that's a great question. All the Measure V roadshows are on the Measure V website. And I can even tell you right now, Gustine is next Tuesday, Atwater's the following Tuesday, the 28th. Livingston is June 4th, Tuesday, and Dos Palos is June 26th. And they're all at the council. The roadshow is actually half an hour before the council. We have boards set up in the lobbies and that sort of thing. So you can look at the materials and then ask staff questions. And then there's a presentation at the council. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Okay, we'll go to item 13, approve the unmet transit needs findings of 1920 for years 19 and 20. Item A is adopt resolution with the finding of fact there are unmet transit needs and including needs that are reasonable to meet. And item B would be to approve the unmet transit feeds for 2019 and 20, and analysis and recommendations report. We have Natalie's going to give us a report.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. So we're in our final step of the unmet transit needs process, so we're bringing this item here for you today to give your final recommendation. But before we do that, I'd like to give you a brief overview of what we did through the unmet transit needs process this year, and also share with you the unmet transit needs that the SSTAC identified. So I know you're all very familiar with what the LTF and the STA are, but I wanted to emphasize the legislative intent for the purpose of these funds. These funds are for the development and support of public transportation needs that exist in California. Now, some counties, like ours, do have the provision to use these funds for non-transit uses if certain conditions are met. So our county can do that. But before we do use any of these funds for non-transit uses, the first thing that we need to do is consult with the SSTAC, and also we need to identify the unmet transit needs of the jurisdiction, particularly the unmet transit needs that are reasonable to meet. Now, the way the unmet transit needs are identified is through a citizen participation process where the SSTAC will receive public comments from those who are transit dependent. So by law, we are required to have at least one public hearing to receive comments from those who are transit dependent. But I'm proud to say that this year we really pulled out all the stops in an effort to get public participation regarding unmet transit needs. We held 8 public hearings throughout the county, and that included a new location in Planada. In addition to receiving comments by phone, email, mail, social media, we also implemented an online survey through which citizens could also submit comments. So we asked and we received. In the past years, we received about 35 to 40 comments. This year, we received 177 comments. So 24 of those comments, though, were considered by the SSTAC to be potential unmet transit needs. So the official MCAG board adopted definition of an unmet transit need is an inadequacy in the existing public transit services for persons recognized as transit dependent in Merced County. So an inadequacy in the public transit services could cover a broad range of things, but the SSTAC focused on comments that identified locations in the county where there is no transit service at all, or it's unavailable at times where it's needed for necessary life activities such as work or school. The SSTAC also paid particular attention to comments that identified where accessibility could be improved for those who are disabled using the transit system. So as I mentioned before, out of 177 comments, 24 were considered by the SSTAC to be potential unmet transit needs. Then the SSTAC analyzed those 24 comments against the board-adopted unmet transit needs definitions and reasonable to meet definitions. So out of the 24, 5 comments were identified as being unmet transit needs that were not reasonable to meet, but 3 of them were considered to be unmet transit needs that are reasonable to meet by the SSTAC. So the SSTAC's official recommendation to the MCAG Governing Board is that there are unmet transit needs, including needs that are reasonable to meet. So here's a list of the reasonable to meet requirements as adopted by the MCAG Governing Board, and they're explained in more detail on page 42 of your agenda. Okay, so drum roll. The unmet transit needs that met all 6 reasonable to meet requirements are extending evening service hours, enhancing the Bus Live app's accessibility options, and provide audible announcements on paratransit buses. So first I'll talk briefly about the ones that are a little bit more straightforward. Enhancing the Bus Live app's accessibility options. Some of those features can be accessed by using the built-in functionality of a person's phone, but the TJPA will work with the app developer to work on certain features that aren't working properly, such as the voiceover. And so, of course, those things need to work properly for those who are disabled, and that really helps them use the bus. Providing audible announcements on paratransit buses. Again, that one's straightforward. The TJPA will work with Synchromatics to provide these announcements on the paratransit buses. Now for extending the evening service hours. I'm going to briefly go through the logic behind what the SSTAC felt, how the SSTAC felt that extending this evening service hours met all reasonable to meet requirements. So first, this automatically met the feasibility requirement because the proposed service is safe and it doesn't violate any laws. The SSTAC considered the cost of extending the service hours to 8:30 p.m., 9:30 p.m., and 10:30 p.m., and found that even if the service was extended to 10:30 p.m., the cost was within the funding requirement and it wouldn't cause the fare box ratio to go below the minimum of 15%, which satisfies the cost effectiveness requirement. So it wouldn't cause the fare box ratio to go below the minimum 15. Several requests were made online and at the hearings to extend the evening service hours. And particularly, there were comments that were requesting for the evening service hours to be extended to accommodate students who want to attend night school. And as a note, 71% of the online survey responders say that they use public transit for school. And it was also mentioned that it was taking longer for students to finish their courses because they are not able to access the night classes because they don't have the transportation to do so. So because of multiple comments and through firsthand knowledge from working with individuals through their social service programs, and also because of using public transit together, because remember, some of the SSTAC members are transit users, they felt that extending the service hours would have community acceptance. They also believe that this met the equity requirement because it would not only benefit the transit-dependent population that are students, but it would also benefit the general public and transit-dependent population as a whole, especially those who work later hours or those who need to shop later, or they might even be discharged from the hospital at those later service hours or later evening hours. So if this new service was implemented, the SSTAC feels confident that the potential ridership requirement is satisfied because the transit-dependent population and some choice riders might try to take advantage of the extended service hours. So, for example, more students might sign up for those night classes now that they have the opportunity to have transportation for that. And also, there are some programs that are offering first-time, full-time students free enrollment. So that also has the potential to increase student ridership. Others might take jobs that end later at night because now they have a dependable ride home. So all those things considered, the SSTAC did feel that extending the evening service hours did reach their reasonable to meet requirements. So if you have any questions, I will try to answer them for you.
Thank you. Do we have any public comment? Okay, seeing none, bring it back to the board. Any comments or questions? Okay, now we need looking for a motion to adopt the resolution and approve the unmet transit needs analysis and recommendation report. Okay, we have a vote. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Go on to item 14, approve the proposed budget for fiscal year 19 and 20 and draft overall work program. Nav?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Nothing has really changed from the budget workshop and last month's budget presentation, but I will go and do a quick rundown just for this board. MCAG is proposing 2 additional new positions. One's an executive assistant and the other one's a multimedia specialist. MCAG is also proposing a 3% COLA, which is based on the CPI, Consumer Price Index of 2018. Some of the notable changes for MCAG will be assessing a $200 surcharge on spouses who elect to be on our insurance if they have other valuable options. We also are switching from ICMA to nationwide. This is not an MCAG. It doesn't reflect on MCAG, but it does reflect on the employees. They actually get a bigger discount when they actually transfer funds in between those programs. We're also doing a safety improvement for the front lobby security. Any questions so far? So to the Transportation Planning Agency, the total increase in revenue expenditures by $388,000. That's because of the COLA and the 3 studies that are happening next year. One's on the west side. The study will look at potential commuter bus from the west side to the Bay Area. The second one will be the east side. The idea is to plan for future transit connections to rail systems coming to Merced, ACE, high-speed rail, and try to coordinate with Amtrak. And the third one is the transit consolidation study with the partnership with UC Merced to see if Catrax and the bus can work together as one system. So, any questions? And the last one is our other programs, which is increased by $433,000. It's basically all employees for the regional waste, transit, and yards are MCAG employees. So the increase is due to merit increases, COLAs, increase in benefits, and basically that's the revenue is what we bill out to the agencies, and the expenditures is what it costs to operate those agencies, staffing wise. So any questions about the budgets?
I got one. I'm trying to, can you go back to the health insurance?
Yes.
Explain, I'm trying to,
So
a little bit slower for me, so I don't quite understand what.
So what happens is we offer free health insurance to everybody in the agency. So what we did was at the beginning of this year is
It's not free. It's just
free
part
to the
of your,
employees.
it's part of your, it's not free. They're working for it.
Okay, yes, that's correct.
Okay.
So we provide
Health insurance.
health insurance, no additional cost to the employees. So now what we do is we are, basically what we're doing is if the spouse has health coverage elsewhere and they decide to be on ours, we're charging a $200 surcharge a month.
So $200 a month you're offering for them to not to take the insurance?
No, to be on our insurance. Their spouses to be on our insurance.
So they can add their spouse
to our insurance. If
for
they
an
have
additional $200 a month.
correct. If they have insurance elsewhere, options.
So right now we, every employee at no cost is offered health insurance for themselves and their entire family, including their spouse. If their spouse is either unemployed or does not have health options through another employer or another arrangement, they can continue to be on their the MCAG plan at no cost to them. So I'll use that as an example. You all know my family structure. I have my partner's a stay-at-home dad, so I would not have to pay $200 for him to be. He would continue to stay. If Nav's wife, who works at UC Merced, elects to be and has health insurance, elects to take ours instead, she would have to pay he would pay a $200 surcharge a month. The idea is we had a number of folks that were getting double coverage, and the cost of the program is becoming more expensive, that we were wanting to maintain a no cost to the employee program, but there was an increased cost. So one of the ways we could try to address lowering the cost without jeopardizing access for everyone who needed it was to add a surcharge at $200 to make people think. You know, now if our program is a richer plan than what they would get through their employer, then it would be a $200 cost for them to be on. Doesn't affect dependents, the children, or the employee, just a double covered spouse.
Okay, so I guess the approach that I've seen is typically where you would incentivize them to take the insurance from someplace else because it would cost you less, but this is the opposite.
We do that as well.
Yes, we do. So if an employee, I'll use myself as an example, if I elect not to take insurance, I would get a deduction, or I would get incentive to go with my wife's insurance, which I do.
Okay, if you guys think it works and it saves you a few bucks, I'll go with it.
Any other questions? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve the 1920 overall work program and budget for the MPD, and a motion to approve the 1920 overall work program and budget for other programs. Have a motion? And a second? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Nav. Item 15, Transit Joint Powers Authority for Merced County monthly update. Artis?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, board members. I'll start with the figures first, and then I'll give you the update from transit. For our ridership numbers for fiscal year 18-19 up until this point, our numbers are quite impressive. 768,826 ridership. For just the month of April, our numbers are up 6.14%, 69,440 just on our fixed route. Measure V ridership from September until this month is 171,178, and 135,160 and 17,178 for the month of April. So those numbers are still increasing, and as I say every month, and our ridership for Merced County is still increasing, while other jurisdictions around the country numbers are decreasing. I want to give you a number for our UC Merced students. Just for the month, we captured that number. It's 9,533 students wrote the system just last month, so that number is increasing. And also, just for students in general, that number was 8,000 that we're able to capture that number. So, as you can see from our numbers, that the students are continually riding the buses, and we're seeing a great demand on that system. One of the things we did do just recently, about a few months ago, we went to Merced College to present to them a plan to allow their students to ride on our system, to share the costs across the student body. And the associated student body bought it wholeheartedly, and we were asked to come back to talk to the trustees. And during that meeting, talking to the trustees, we found out that particular day that a student body voted it down. It lost 44% to 51%, and so we were kind of discouraged about it. However, the Board of Trustees, bought it 100%, and so we're going to go back in the very near future here and promote it again, because we think it's an excellent system. The fare was $10 per student across the board versus a student paying $180 for a semester pass, and so we feel that one of the reasons why it did not pass was because lack of education, and so staff is committed to going back to making sure that the students understand that passing this would cause the entire student body to be able to ride the system, and that would take care of their transportation needs as far as getting back and forth to school.
Okay, Artis, thank you. Any questions for Artis? Public comment?
Artis, one question on that. And so the way that that would work is through an administrative fee, or when they register, they would just pay $10 per student on the total number of students, and that would give every student for a semester, for that semester, they would have access to be able to ride the bus.
Correct. They would actually see a $10 increase in their tuition. So the cost would be passed through their tuition, which would allow them a transportation fee to ride the fixed route throughout the system for free. Well, it wouldn't be for free for that 10 hours that they're paying.
Exactly. Thank you. Free died a long time ago.
Yes, a way long time ago. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Director Murphy.
Thanks for the update. A little bit disappointed to hear it didn't pass. I'll just share a quick anecdote. My oldest son goes to Merced College, and I hadn't talked to him about it, but a few weeks back, he said, "Hey, Dad, we had a vote today at school, and he was telling me about it and telling me that he can actually ride the bus for free because he's in a wheelchair." But he said, "I can ride it for free," but I felt like it was a good thing. So
Absolutely.
I voted yes.
Absolutely.
So I hope it's successful. But I mean, ultimately, it's their choice. But maybe with some education, you might get a different result. I don't know.
And we believe that's the reason why it did not pass was just lack of education. So staff is committed to going back to making sure that we promote it and to making sure that the students understand that this is a win-win situation.
Okay, any other questions?
I'll just add that we've already been, the Vice President's already reached out to schedule a meeting, and Artis and I will be meeting with them
June the 10th.
June 10th to just begin kind of what's the next steps. I think both between the board and our staff, I mean, I think we still have hope that it's the right thing to do and it'll happen, but we'll just now have a slower approach with a plan of action on how to better educate the students, and then we'll try again.
Absolutely.
Yeah, go ahead, Director.
I wasn't thinking of this earlier, but does that, earlier we had discussion about the unmet transit needs. I mean, is this a data point saying they don't want to ride the bus?
Well, I think it goes hand in hand because part of the concern that we heard was that the hours were not there for the students who want to take night classes, and so I think part of the unmet transit needs came from the night service not being there. But we're in the process now of going back and letting them know that we will be providing night service in the very near future.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, let's keep Artis up there. He's going to get us to authorize a contract for transit security services.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. Once again, the contract for the current security system in Merced County expires June the 30th. Staff has seeking approval to enter into a new contract to continue to provide on-site security for 3 years in the amount not to exceed $334,000. And as you can see from the staff report, there was 3 different proposals that was taken, ranging from $334,000 to $900,000. And after the evaluation interview process, Power Security Group was chosen. And the proposed contract is for 3 years at a cost of $331,000 at $110,000 per year. And so we're asking for you to approve for the executive director to enter a contract for transit services not to exceed $334,000 beginning June 1st.
Any public comment? Not, I'll bring it back to the board. Okay, we have a motion to approve. And we have a second. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, Artis. Item 17, Transit Joint Powers Authority for Merced County for the 1920 proposed budget. Nav?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll take it slowly this time. I don't want to go too fast. Basically, the biggest increase in the request for LTF and the expenditure is the operation and maintenance contractor. That's, the increase of about $2.7 million is what we're expecting the increase to be. It won't exceed it. That's on the operational side. On the capital side, we are looking at a couple of projects to do throughout the county. One of them is a bus stop improvement, which is we'll go throughout the county and look at what bus stops needs to be refurbished or put a new roof on, and we'll fix those or need to be painted. There's also another project that's to reduce flag stops in North Merced. Mr. Murphy, we did reach out. We're going to reach out to one of your staff members to provide the map and give them our priority list of what we want to do first. And then we do have a renovation of the building next door. We have funding set aside of $937,000. It doesn't mean we're going to utilize it. It's just that we have funding set aside. We also, last month, the board approved to apply for the no emission grant. That's roughly $2 million of federal grants, and then we set aside, the board also approved that Measure V of $500,000 goes towards that program. So other than that, any questions?
Any questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chair. Nav, so does that include the previous thing that the security contract?
Yes.
Wasn't that a little bit higher than it was previously?
Yes, we took in factor of, 20% increase just in case.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions? If not, I'll entertain a motion. It's been moved and seconded. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thanks, Nav.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go on to item 18, the Merced County Regional Waste Management Authority monthly update. Brooks?
That's me. Good afternoon. You know how I like to show you pictures and show you what's going on out there. So this is Billy Wright Phase 2B. And so you see at the bottom of the picture, lower right, sorry, maybe I can use the pointer here. There you go, right there. That is the ramp into the cell. So just to know, we spent $5–6 million on this liner. We don't want to poke a hole in it. So we put soft garbage, which is the residential kind that, you know, the gray cans that you have at your house. That gets dumped down first, and we put 2 or 3 feet of that on first before we take commercial loads that might have a drive shaft or something that would poke a hole through the liner. So we're doing it, we're calling it flooring it with select waste, but it's going well and real good there. Just some other updates on other projects. Highway 59, the new gas wells, about half of the 38 wells have been installed at this point. So I'd say we're generally on schedule and on budget with that one. Phase 6B is the new expansion at Highway 59. And again, we're just building half of it because what the plan to do is just to tide us over until we get the valley fill, because the valley fill is so much cheaper and so much more volume. So we're just reducing our expense by building half at this time. And then we are working on the design and permitting of adding a new scale and widening the traffic lanes on the way out of Highway 59. So if you've ever been there and you're leaving the landfill, there's only one bypass lane. So we're going to put a second scale and have a bypass lane. And the pavement is going to extend all the way back to that wheel wash station that's at the intersection. So you'll be able to probably get 7 or 8 more vehicles and have 2 lanes of vehicles exiting. So it will really help speed up traffic on Saturdays. No question. For you frequenters of the landfill. And then Billy Wright, we had a little bit of a falling out on the design with the engineering firm. We give a lot of work to Tetra Tech and SCS, so we were trying to use another vendor on the list. We had 2 site meetings and explained that we only have 1 scale and 1 way in, 1 way out. We'd like to have 2 scales and have the scale house in the middle. And they designed it that the new scale house went over the old scale house and had 3 lanes altogether, which means you have to walk across the scale while someone's weighing in or out, which will mess up the weight and the transaction. And we repeatedly said, you can't do that. We need it done this way. And they sent a design that had it wrong. And like I said, 2 site meetings over there with them and still got it wrong. So we think it's time to cut ties with them. So we're kind of starting over at Billy Wright, and I apologize for that, but we don't think we should keep doing business with somebody that doesn't listen to us and what our needs are. So, and then UC Merced, students came out a couple of weeks ago. I think they were all graduate students. There were probably about 25 of them. It was the small bus, but it was full. And came out and had about 2 hours at the landfill, and I've got some pictures of that. But it was really cool, and I just want to emphasize that this could be a great partnership in the future. They're wanting to do real-world environmental engineering research, and the landfill is just this perfect lab for them to do that. And so in the future, and they're just tie this all together, I'm from Florida, and I had that same research partnership with the University of Florida. And so their head environmental engineer person brought students down. So we had anywhere from 2 to 12 students doing their master's or their PhD research at our landfill from the University of Florida. Well, one of those students is now at UC Merced. And she loved that program, and so she would love to see that get going. So it's one of those things that I would really encourage you in the future to develop that dialogue and be able to get that research done and have that connection with our future leaders and engineers. So now just some pictures. This is the drill rig that's at Highway 59 putting in the gas wells. So that gives you perspective of the size of it. It's actually a pretty big unit. And then what happens is once they drill the hole, they put the perforated pipe down in, and then they fill that with an aggregate or a rock that becomes the very less permeable than the garbage. The garbage is very dense, so the gas finds the path of least resistance, and so it will come out there, and that's how we get the gas out and don't just suck in oxygen into the landfill. So again, that's going well, and you end up with these new wellheads. That's one of the new ones completed, and you see on the picture on the right, QED, that's a new type of wellhead that gives us, we've in the past just been able to, basically the well is on or off, and we didn't have a very sophisticated control of it. And what we want is the wells that have high quality gas, turn those up. The ones that have low quality gas, turn those down. And this one gives us the ability to fine tune all of the 120 or so wells on the site so we get the best quality gas for the UC project. And just scrapers, so this is the big work that's involved with the landfill expansion is moving the soil or digging that hole. So here's the equipment on site, and just to show you the size of it, they don't look big until you walk up next to them, but they're pretty big. That wheel's got to be over 8 feet tall. And this is them just excavating the hole. Basically, this is over here on the left, that's about how deep they're going to dig, and so that whole embankment there to the right's got to come out, but they're making good progress. I think Marty told me they're about halfway done. So, oh, and here's some of the students. And I apologize. One of those days I totally forgot to take the camera and get a good picture of all the students, but it was a really good day. Okay, and then biggies on the gas energy project. We had a meeting with them a week or so ago, and my biggest concern about this project is that we can't deliver the energy by the time their campus expansion is done, and then they would walk away because they don't like that. I think they really want to introduce the campus is open and we're 100% renewable energy, and they want to make those two announcements at the same time. And so we said, you know, we can't control a lot of the environmental issues or construction issues, so we're not sure we can exactly meet December 2020 deadline. And they said, no problem. So they are totally fine with, as long as we're working on it and moving forward, they love the deal and they want to keep going. And that was directly from the Assistant Vice Chancellor of Facilities. So the project is a go as far as they're concerned. So we're working on the environmental review. Basically, the only issue is the pipeline that runs on the north side of Bellevue between G and Lake, or the campus. There is one wetland. If you've driven that and you look to the left, you'll see a spot in the pasture that's a little lower and has a different type of grass or weeds. It's probably a little greener now than the rest of it's brown. That's the wetland. And so where that approaches the road, there could be some protected species or something. But we've learned now that's only a few hundred feet, and we can horizontally bore underneath wetlands to a distance of 1,500 feet. So even if there is a problem with that wetland, and that's the only one thing we know of by general site survey, we can go underneath it. So it looks like the seek was a go. So that brings us to the power purchase agreement. The UC can't sign anything permanent or binding until the seek was done. But they've already asked for an updated version of the power purchase agreement. So what that means is they're so willing to look at it in advance, they're confident it's going to go through. So again, good news. So what we're recommending now is that we continue to move forward and run these things simultaneously, which is to pay the consultant to develop bid specs for the project. So right now we've spent probably a little under $300,000 on all of the environmental work in the design and prep here, you know, and that's all been a gamble because we don't know if we're going to push through with this. But right now the deal that we've sent over is for about $65 million. That's not our profit, that's the whole amount that we get paid. And so what happens next is we have to hire a financial advisor, and that's state requirement. You guys know that, you do more bonding than I do. So we have to hire a financial advisor and then do the bond. And so the contract for the financial advisor will come back to you. You'll approve that. Again, it's non-binding. We don't pay them anything unless the deal goes through. Then we'll pursue the bond. Again, we don't pay anything unless the deal goes through. And so what we're working on now is to try to get the pro forma numbers in, get the final estimates of what it is going to cost, and then how much of that 65 million is left over, because obviously there's always an unknown whenever you pursue a project on a pipeline or whatever. So we don't want to just break even though we're going to offset over 100,000 tons a year of carbon into the atmosphere. We want there to be a little cushion, and I don't really want to call it profit, but we want it to not be a total risk on our end. So we're going to come back to you with some numbers that show how much we have, how much cushion we have, and make sure you're comfortable with that. But again, you're going to get 2 more stabs at this, because you'll get to choose the financial advisor. You'll get to see the results of what the bond is going to look like, which will have all of the pro forma in there, all the numbers. So we'll bring that back to you when you do the pro forma and the power purchase agreement. Both of those come back to you for review. So we're not committed to anything if it doesn't look good, if it's not well in the black. You've got several options here to, pull the plug on it. And I call it go or no go. Should pop up there, yeah. So you're going to have that, and hopefully it'll be late summer, early fall. And if that goes through, then we can proceed with the project. So,
Brooks, question for you, Mr. Chair, if I could.
Is he through? Are you through, Brooks?
Yes, good. I have one more announcement.
Okay.
Yes.
I like to ask him when I think about him, otherwise then I forget by the time he gets done. So those carbon credits are all that those emissions that we won't be putting in the air. Can we sell those credits?
No.
We're just required to do it by law, and then the state sells them.
Landfills are excluded from that benefit. So we actually will turn them over to the UC, and if they can do something with it, that's to their advantage rather than them going to waste.
We ought to talk about reserving the right for them to kind of kick something back if they're able to sell those. Those deals could be potentially, or in California, those deals could be potentially worth a lot of money.
And I agree, but it's a tough negotiation, because I just look at it this way, and I don't know everything on their side, but essentially, as I see it, their solar panels are paid for. Somebody else is paying for their solar panels. So they're just getting the cost of getting the electricity from the parking lot to their building kind of thing. So their electricity, as far as they're concerned, is very cheap. And they don't, and I'm not sure what the credits would be of value to them. Honestly, I'm not an expert on that at all. But I'm willing to ask, but we have kind of talked about that in the past, because one of the things they could do is use those credits for another campus that doesn't have solar panels or space for it or whatever, and they haven't really been jumping on the bandwagon about that either. So I don't know that there's a lot of value.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, Mike.
You mentioned the construction of the pipeline along Bellevue,
Yes.
right, to the north side of Bellevue. That's not in the roadway. That's north of the north side of the lane.
Yes.
So I just want to make sure we're going to be coordinating, because the city of Merced has an agreement with the campus. It was not an easy agreement to reach, but we have it, that when they hit 9,000 average daily trips on that road, that they're required to add additional lanes on each side.
Yes, and I specifically asked about that because that's what I was told from various public works departments. And so when I talked to them, and this again, the vice chancellor, he assured me that the university was not tied to that. What happens is when they hit a certain threshold of students, then they are committed to helping fund the study of whether the widening is necessary.
That's the first step, and then they're on the hook
right.
when it becomes necessary. So I just want to make sure we're coordinating. It's in the county right now. But if you're going to be opening it up and doing trenches, maybe that's the time to also talk about what else needs to be done.
Yeah, ideally, you're totally correct. And that was the whole purpose of the meeting the other week, was to find out where they stood on the widening. Because if the environmental review's been done, we don't have to do it. And the wetlands won't be an issue. They'll have already mitigated for it. And they assured me that nothing has been done.
Right.
And what they told me was they're basically not on the hook for any of it. And if they feel like it, they'll donate some money to the cause.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
So don't
they're
quote me on that.
I love the UC.
I try to keep them as friends because I'm looking at this deal.
Oh,
but yes, the worst case scenario is we put the pipeline in now, and in a year, and then it will be years, I think, but in 5 or 10 years you widen the road, and the project ends up having to pay $2 or $3 million to move it 10 feet. But I don't think to me, it's not worth not pursuing the project because the road is late. I would suggest that you go ahead and put it in and then.
It just seems like we should put it
call.
in the right place, though.
Pardon me?
Do it once, rather. You're saying we might have to move it?
Well, but I don't think the right of ways don't exist, and nothing really has happened with it from what I can see. So we can't project to put it when there's been no planning on that road.
But you can still pave over it right? Are you saying you can't? You have to move it?
Maybe that's a possibility. That's true.
We have infrastructure.
That's true. Maybe
under our roads all throughout the city.
Yeah, it potentially could be. Yeah, we can try.
Hopefully, we don't have to move it.
Put the road instead of it on the side where the pipe is. Extend the lanes on the other side of the road.
PG&E has a gas line on that side already.
Yeah.
But could I make a suggestion? Yeah. So maybe the suggestion is when you get to construction, is ask the question of if we put this pipeline in, could it be paved over? If not, what would need to be done to make it pavable? And just part of the question.
Yeah, if there's something that we could throw into the construction now to make it withstand traffic or whatever, and it's going to be several feet below grade, I don't think it would be a problem, but yes, we can ask that for sure. Good point.
Any other questions? Yes, Mike.
Brooks, can you give us an update, if any, on the land purchase for Billy Wright?
Yes, and I apologize. I would have actually I had hoped to show you something today, but it was a delay on my part of reviewing their work, so you'll have it next month. But they went through and they looked at the 3 locations. One is south of Los Banos, one is east towards the Y, and then one is the next interchange up at Santanella, and looked at properties where you could actually get a road, and they're contiguous 150 acres or so that would be big enough to put a landfill on, and then look at, is it a wetland or a protected whatever. And so I think there were a total of 5 areas. They're A through E. And so the one above Santanella is the only one that doesn't have some major flaw that we would not want to be able, you couldn't pursue it. And so now we're doing a price comparison, just, from 10,000 feet up of that property versus the 600 acres immediately to the north. And as soon as that is done, then we can bring that back to you and just show you the whole report, and then you can go from there.
Thank you. And what's the time span on that?
It'll probably be done in a week or 2, but we won't see each other till June. So.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
I don't anticipate we'll have any problem showing you that matrix in June.
Fantastic. Thank you.
And then there's a HHW spring cleanup in Los Banos this weekend at the fairgrounds.
Thank you again.
So if anybody over there needs disposal, whatever, tell them about it.
Okay.
Any other questions for Brooks? Okay, thank you, Brooks.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have on the consent agenda, we have 2 property damage claims, and it's recommended we reject them both. I'll entertain a motion. We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Opposed? Motion. Okay, we have 1 no. Ayes have it. Move on to item 20, a proposed fiscal year for the 1920 operating budget, 1920 capital project overview, and the 1920 fleet budget. Nadia, hi, Nadia.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to excuse myself.
What? Oh, okay, that's right, you have to go.
Yeah, Nav and I drew straws, and I got the short one. Yeah, just if you wanted the budget review, we're estimating about $15 million in revenue and about $8 million in expenses, so it's a good cushion there of about $7 million. About half of that is going to go to reserves and fleet and the old bond, and then about half is going to go to new capital projects or be sitting there for you to assign in future budgets. So the big change this year, I'd say the only thing that's new is we have about $4.5 million of new projects that are basically geared towards the Valleyville expansion and being able to proceed with that master plan. So there's about $2 million to put infrastructure on the east side of the site so we can develop more parking and electricity and fire suppression, whatever, so whatever we build over there. But we are recommending that we put a new office over there and then remove the office where it sits, and that will become the one-stop drop for customers. They can come in and drop off all their recyclables or hazardous waste or tires or whatever before they go into the landfill. So you're just approving the budget right now. All these items will get bid out for construction, and so they will come back to you for final approval in a contract amount. So again, you're just approving the budget. You're not actually approving the projects yet until we get to the construction or get to the cost and construction phase. Any questions?
Any questions for Brooks? That was quick. We have a motion and a second to approve. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Okay, now we go on to item 21, the Executive Director's Report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to make a couple of quick thank yous. One is to Directors Murphy and Lohr and Aguilar and Creighton and Chair Oliveira for your participation in the One Voice program. That trip was a couple weeks ago, the first week of May. We just had our debrief on the trip today. I think it was a very successful program. We've had a lot of really positive feedback, but just want to thank all of the jurisdictions. We just continue to have great support for the program and great participation. So thank you for making that program a priority for the agency. And also a thank you to Director McDaniel for attending with staff, attending the Regional Policy Conference in Lemoore last week. He also received the Transportation Enhancement Award for the Operations and Maintenance Facility on behalf of the Transit Joint Powers Authority. That was really cool to kind of have that Valley audience see an accomplishment that happened with the support of this board. And then lastly, I want to introduce, I'm going to embarrass her, but I want to introduce Nancy Castaneda. She is our newest staff person. She is an accounting clerk. But she is sitting up front where Joy is, up front when you come into the lobby. So she's a new face, and she's cross-training with Joy because, you know, Joy does everything for us. So we need someone else to know what all the wonderful things that she knows and does for us. So you'll see Nancy more often, and we just want to welcome her to the team. I think this is your third week? Third week. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Stacy. Okay, Executive Director's Report. Mayor Villalta. But we can take our household hazardous. Wow. Director McDaniel. No.
Well, Stacy already reported out. I did represent this body at the San Joaquin Policy Council, and it went very well. It was nice to be able to receive that award amongst all the other awards that were presented. Thanks.
Only thing I have to report is yesterday the West Side Regional Committee met, and I'm happy to say that we were able to come out of that meeting after a few meetings and gave staff direction on moving forward with a plan. So just a little message to my friends on the East Side Committee. Maybe we could do the same thing next week when we meet.
We get lunch.
I had the opportunity to be a part of the One Voice. It was a great learning experience. We, as a county, definitely spoke with one voice. I was a part of the economic development team, and I have to say we were probably one of the best teams. I did get to, had tons of fun with staff and Townsend. Found out a couple of folks are from Worcester County in Massachusetts, so definitely a great time for us to get to know staff in other jurisdictions. Had the debrief today, really positive. This is the first year that we downsized the delegation, and I felt as though the number of folks who went this year was just the perfect size, kind of herding everyone and getting everyone through security and getting everyone into the rooms, perfect size. Next year, if no one else is interested, I'd love to go again. Thank you.
Well, I'd just like to thank Joe for running a good meeting today. And anyways, so Peninsula Clean Energy's presentation, I think that's definitely worth us looking at. So I don't know what you need as far as if it could be agendized or a workshop or something, but I'd like to see us move forward.
Yes.
I also made the trip to Washington, and just wanted to thank the MCAG staff for their work in putting it together. I too am interested in the Peninsula Clean Energy discussion, whether it's a partnership with them or something we do on our own. I think they've got a lot of knowledge and a lot of experience they've gained that we could learn from. Yes. So, I mean, what's the process for getting something on the agenda?
It would be per our agenda request policy, the direction or the suggestions that I have here would mean I'd put it on the agenda for June, and it would be as an action for this body to, if we had a majority vote, to have it on as an action item. So there would have to be an item on the agenda to see if there's even consensus for staff to put work into actually bringing it back as an actual item.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? So I get that, and I understand why those processes are put in place. But if, without giving direction, just like an indication from, because I'm interested in seeing something come back too, and it would save us a whole month if we kind of already knew that, like if you could read the weather and try to see if there's kind of at least enough interest to bring something back, and it would save us time, because it kind of seems like in that timeline that they laid out, that if it's something that we're interested in, we need to get the first question answered, which is, get the usage reports from PG&E, and that's kind of what guides you to, and I think that's a PG&E process that probably isn't very quick. So I would like to see us bring something back, not to just find out at the next meeting, if staff could start to look into it. But that would be just my thoughts.
I was looking at council. Okay. Does there need to be any discussion then as to whether or not this would be the body that would be the one to do something like that, or? Because that was kind of what came to my mind is this the body to do it, or would you want to discuss what other options there are for administering something like this? Or are you saying specifically to direct staff to bring back an item to begin the process of doing the forms through PG&E?
I don't think we're quite ready to get to that yet, but at least if we wait to go to the next meeting before we give you direction to bring anything back, we're a month behind. If we can you can take some kind of inference that at least look into some of those questions that you can. Is this the proper body for it? And what does that look like to help? Because I know that, we can do it as a JPA. You can join their JPA and be a part of theirs. And quite honestly, if there's jurisdictions that don't want to be a part of it, there's some jurisdictions that can go and start their own little deal. I think it's worth at least agendizing it so that we can have some open discussion and try to move forward if we can, if folks are interested.
Okay, Mayor Hogue.
I'd just like to say that we will be having a Veterans Memorial service on May 28th, along with, I'm pretty sure, a DES parade that weekend. So if you're out and about and in Dos Palos, come by and see our bumpy roads. Thank you.
Director Oliveira?
Yeah.
Should we, talk to all our respective councils and maybe agendize that with all the municipalities and see if they're really interested in this type of alternative energy?
They're going to be at our council meeting next week.
Yeah. and we haven't had them come to ours. And or either we could roll out something, pass out the information, or schedule them for an upcoming council meeting before the MCAG meeting if possible. Because I'm thinking if we had buy-in from everyone and see who's interested and who's not interested, and at least looking into it, I think that would be better for us to give us direction as to how we're going to proceed. So.
Yeah, I think staff has direction for the next meeting.
Yeah.
And it looks like a real promising program, so
yeah.
I can't see anybody just opting out for without having a good reason.
Okay. Well, I think if we have time, I'm going to try and agendize it then. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, all I have is one voice. I thought this year's was the best ran, the easiest to get around. I mean, we weren't meeting under stairways or in closets or in basements. We actually got into offices with tables, and we got some good direction. I know myself and our mayor, we both came away encouraged by what we heard. We think we have a chance to get something done because of this meeting. And other than that, all I have to do is say, don't forget Memorial Day out at San Joaquin Valley Cemetery. They always have a very outstanding program that's well attended. If you've never been, I would recommend you give it a try. It's very inspiring and emotional from all the Blue Star mothers and different veterans groups they have there. So remember our veterans on Veterans Day, and if there's no other business, meeting's adjourned.